Thailand's government has backed down over a ban on large gatherings that it imposed last week as it tried to put an end to months of mass protests. Tens of thousands of people have been demonstrating each night in defiance of the ban. They want the Prime Minister to resign, a new constitution and reform to Thailand's monarchy. Well, I'm joined from Bangkok by Associate Professor Viengrat Nethipo, who's a university political scientist in Thailand. Very good evening to you. First of all, tell us about the announcement that has been made there today by the government, backing down, it seems.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, it's very interesting that the government from last night announced that they would lift the decree, the emergency decree, and today they lift the emergency decree. Like it showed that stepping back a bit, and also released one of the leaders who was arrested last night. So I think this time create an atmosphere for negotiation. And the protest also called for resting for 3 days. Since October 14, they never be in any rest for any day. So I think for all of us, who just observing and got tired from that, was kind of relieved to hear that they would be resting for 3 days and waiting for the government to resign, so for the Prime Minister for you to resign.
OK, that's interesting. So there won't be protests for 3 days. The ban on protests has been lifted. Do you expect that to be it? Or is there any signs that the government might go further and agree to some of the demands, or at least agree to talk to the people protesting?
It goes well, in my opinion. Judging from the past 2 weeks, I think this morning it's a kind of better news. I couldn't say good news yet, but better tendency. And I hope that the special session, extraordinary session of the parliament that will be held next week will be a venue for discussion and peaceful solution.
Viengrat, they've been very large protests. How organised have they been? How have they been organised?
Oh, this is been a very interesting point, and most people concerned about this because these students, they came together without having deep or longer connection or friendship. They just share together because they share their ideology, they share their demands and frustration on politics. So they form together loosely. So they are not really well organized, but in a way they are very efficient in using social media to call for the protest. And when they try to protect the police from blocking them, they would not tell the protesters when and where to meet. And when they call immediately within an hour, most protesters would be at the spot right there. So this is, in a way, it's not organized in the old term, but it is very well connected in social media and in technology.
Interesting. Does it then have similarities? It reminds me of a bit of what happened in Hong Kong with the young people rising up and keeping in touch, keeping their protest movement going with the use of strong imagery and social media. Might the protest there in Thailand be learning lessons from Hong Kong?
Definitely. I think especially among the leaders, I think a few of them really learned from Hong Kong, and they had even strong alliance and sympathy to Hong Kong students. But in general, Thai people is very inward looking. And I think they learned a lot from their past too, because we have been having a lot of protests in the past. And what they learned, the most lesson they learned from the previous protests is using violence. So they try their best to be peaceful. They try their best to keep discipline in peaceful protests, and they did very well despite of unknown leadership, despite of unknown solution and direction even within the protesters. For instance, last night, most of them did not know whether the leaders would head them to the government house, but they still keep their spirit high and joy to the last.
Very interesting. Viengrat Nethipo, we'll see what happens over the next few days. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.